do a Vulcan or a Willy skipper, I would watch it take off, and initially it looks like they're spinning the nose around. The board is pivoting around the nose in the air, and it looks to me like the center of rotation for these moves is the nose. But then when you watch carefully and you look more closely at the maneuver, you realize that in a Vulcan, for example, not only is the tail traveling forward in the air, the nose is traveling backward. When you watch someone loop, not only is the tail going up, the nose is traveling backwards in the air on the loop. So the center of rotation of the board in the aerials is not the nose. So that makes the most natural center of rotation when someone does a Willy skipper, for example, and you see them kick and you see the board spin around, or when you see someone do a Vulcan, you see the board spin around, or even a loop and you see the board spin around. It seems like the most natural place for the board to spin around would be the mass base. Right? You think like a Willy skipper would be like a lazy Susan. Kind of board, it'd spin around like a lazy Susan around the mass base, and you would land and you would go backwards. And that makes sense too. And I think some people do it that way. But the problem with that system is that if the center of spin in any trick is the mass base, on the tail are the foot straps. You can control the tail with your feet. The problem is if the center of spin is the mass base, what can you control in front of the mass base? Nothing. So that means all aerial people have like super talented feet. And they can do everything with their feet and just like let go of the sail and flag it. And little kids like can do that. I hate to say it. Just tell a kid to jump and turn a board around, they let go of the sail and they spin around with their feet, but they're spinning around the mass base. But realistically, we have to be able to control both ends of spins. So we want to learn to control the tail of the board with the feet, which you guys kind of all understand about picking your feet up or kicking your feet. But we want to learn to control the nose of the board in all of our aerials with the mass base. So the center of spin in all tricks is actually halfway between the mass base and the foot straps. And my engineers, the closer those two forces are together, right, that's going to make the board spin faster, and spin faster, and spin faster, and the further those two forces are apart, it'll spin slower. Which is why freestyle boards have the mass base and foot straps so close together now. It makes it very easy to spin around. So, you guys, we understand the idea of foot steering, but let's talk about mass-based steering. Mass-based steering is something we need to look at because we're going to use it a lot. If I take this quarter, put it on a table, put my finger on top of the quarter, and I want to slide a quarter, no matter how hard I push, it's very hard to slide with my finger straight above the quarter. But as I lean my finger on an angle, I can slide or push the quarter very easily. I can push it all over the place. Or I can take the table, and I can tilt the table, and I can also push the quarter really easily. This quarter represents our mass base, and my finger is the mast. And when we're in the air, the angle that our mast gets on our mast base will give it leverage to turn the mast base different directions. Or, a lot of times when you see people go for a loop, it looks like they're doing a rail ride in the air. And that also gets leverage on the mast base, so the mast base spins. So there's two ways to get this mast base to spin here. One is by moving the mast to position, the other is by actually tilting the board a little bit. That also helps. Now, if we take a board and divide it into two parts, the windward side and the leeward side, if I push my mast on the windward side and push down on the mast, what direction would the nose turn? Go downwind. If I put the mast on the windward side and pulled on the windward mast, what direction would the nose turn? Go upwind. Right? If I put the mast on the leeward side and pulled on it, the nose will go downwind. If I put the leeward side on the mast on the leeward side and pushed on it, the nose will go upwind. On a loop, what direction does the nose turn? Downwind. On a Vulcan, what direction does the nose turn? Downwind. What's interesting is on those two moves, we turn the nose downwind with the sail in completely different position. On a loop, our goal is to turn the nose downwind with our mast on the windward side. On a Vulcan, we want to turn our mast downwind from the leeward side and pull. So even though the nose is going the same direction as the moves, how we get it here is going to make a difference on the landing point where the sail is going to be when you finish. So Vulcan is a pull and loop is a push. Now, mass-based control, you may not think you have good mass-based control, but you guys actually do. Arnold, you have very good mass-based control doing one move in your life, which is beach starting. You stand in shallow water and you have your sail above your head, you guys can steer your board all over the place while you're holding the sail. Upwind, downwind, right? Just needing the mast, pushing on it, pulling on it. You guys can do all kinds of cool mass-based control when you're standing on the ground. Is it easier for me while I'm practicing beach starting to steer the board all over the place with the sail if the sail's full of wind? Or is it easier to steer the board all over the place if the sail's sheeted out? Sheet it out, right? If you have the sail on your head and sheet it out, you can push on the pull on the mast and make it do all kinds of stuff. But if sheet in. Jump high and sheet in. If I jump high and sheet in, where is my sail located? Straight over the board. Clue in. What direction will the nose turn? Straight down. Alright. One, a loop, especially because we're going to look at flat water loops, it's really going to be basically about a very bizarre takeoff posture, which we'll look at more in a minute. And learning to take off with our sail sheeted out and over our head, which is a completely different position than the normal jump. So if you jump first, if Steve, you decide you're going to jump before you loop, you better have a huge wave where you have enough time to jump, sheet out, move the sail over, and then loop. Alright? Otherwise, you're always going to loop on the way down, and the nose is not going to turn on the way up. If the nose does not turn on the way up, then it's going to be in the way when I loop. If I can sheet out and turn the nose on the way up, then when I loop, there is nothing in the way, and I have no trouble getting myself to flip over. Alright, so it's a very bizarre sheeted out takeoff posture, which we're going to study and look at for looping or jumping. For looping. And it is not like jumping. If you jump first, forget it. Arnold and I were having a discussion on the phone, and it's funny how you learn this the hard way, but everybody tells you jump sheet in, jump sheet in, jump sheet in. So it works if you go big enough. If you don't go big enough, it's not going to happen. Right, and then you're going to get scared because you're going to keep coming down on the nose. So the reason we're afraid to loop, if you're afraid, is because you're afraid to get hurt. Right? And really, the thing that you're afraid of hurting yourself is plowing into your gear. So we're going to spend time learning how to spin the gear out of the way first. Once we spin the gear out of the way, then we'll learn to get air from that. And then hopefully the gear is out of your way so you don't hurt yourself in the crowd. Alright, how are we doing so far? So you guys understand fast-paced steering? And we'll refer to that in more aerials throughout the weekend. But the more leverage the sail gets, the mast gets on the mast base, the better that thing's going to spin. Okay, I want to show you guys something in the dark. We're going to pop our heads into Bob's van for a minute, and I want to show you a takeoff position.